Okay, hi guys. Um, Let me know if you can hear me perfectly so we can get started. We give a couple of more minutes and then we're good to go. Perfect. So the first thing that we will do is actually I'm gonna go through process of buying domain. The reason that we will do that first is because usually when you buy the domain it takes a couple of, I would say, around an hour or 30 minutes to propagate. So the first thing that we will do is like actually buy the domain, so if we want to use it later we can use it. You are free to just watch me doing it, or you're welcome to actually buy your own domain. So let's see how we can achieve that. Right now I'm using a website called Namecheap for buying a domain. What I will do is I will hide the screen and show it to you after I like each step, because some of these steps actually shows my personal information, which I kind of don't want to show in the live stream. So that's the whole idea. We will basically hide it, and like I'll go through the steps of buying it, and then I show you to make sure that it doesn't show any of my personal information. So the first thing that, yeah, if you have a GitHub account, if you have like an edu account, you actually can GitHub the student pack or developer pack or something like that, and they will give you a free domain. The process is the same. The only difference is like you don't have to pay at the end. So that's the only difference. I do believe that getting that free domain is only for the first time though. So like after the second year you have to actually pay some money to them. Okay, so here's how it works. First, you will have to look for the domain that you want. I'm actually gonna cheat it. I find a domain that I wanted to use, so let's go back here. Yep, my best domain, that best. So the first thing that you will do is like you type the domain that you want, the domain name that you want in here. For instance, I just type my best domain, that best, and then hit search. Now this search result will bring you some results with different values. Right now what I did is like I actually selected this my best domain.best. It's like $1.80. So I added to my cart, and then I will go ahead and view my cart. So let me do this. Let me close this. See, this is the part that I'm telling you I have to actually go because I don't want you. Actually, I think I can go. Let's try. Yeah. So after you add it to your cart, basically it tells you, okay, this is the domain that you want to buy. The registration time of this is about like 1 year. You can add like 2-3 years. It's up to you totally. Like as soon as you change it, like you see how big of a difference it makes. So make sure like you know what's going on. I do not want to auto renew it because it's just for this course. And then the HoistGuard. The HoistGuard is just for the like when you buy the domain, it will hide your personal information. So it's kind of like a proxy. So like if you do not use this service, what happens is like any people can go and search for the domain and look up your personal information, or like the domain owner information, which is not bad, but you can have it, and so why not? So you can enable this, and then it will ask you for like your information. Because I already entered my information, it just wants me to confirm my order. I'm going to like hide the screen and do the confirm order because it shows my credit card information. Alright, so if you look at here, the bottom part is like my payment details, and the top part is just the domain information and then the pay now. Okay, so this is the next step. And after you pay, you will see a screen like this. I make it a little bit bigger because it shows again my personal information, which is not good. So you see it shows like the order number and the purchase summary. That's all we want from here. Okay, so for now we will give it some time. If you already bought a domain, you can you can give it some time, and we will come back and visit it. Again, buying a domain is not necessary. I just want to show you guys how it's being done. It will be up to you on if you want to use it or not. So let's actually talk a little bit about the servers and how the servers is going to work. Before I start talking about the servers and virtual private servers, do you guys have any questions? So I find a very good actually like set of slides from Fullstack from a senior dev software engineer called Jim Young, that we will actually go through it for setting up our own server. Here is the link for that. Let's put this link here. This guy, like you will see, like all the slides are mostly the things that we cover, so we will skip them till we get to the points of things that we didn't participate or didn't do before. So let's go through it. So we covered like a front end and full stack. What is a full stack developer? Who's a full stack or who's front end? And then how application browser and everything works together. So we talked about command line. See, like these are the things that every person will look or talk about. I think, yeah, we talked about all these commands. Shell, we talked about shell and internet, private internet. We talked about IP addresses. We talked about IP version 6. I don't think we all talked about IP version 6, so I'm gonna just talk about a little bit of IP version 6. So even right now, the internet is primarily rely on IP version 4. We mentioned that the way that you can find the websites or resources in the internet is through their IP addresses. And we can do it with the help of IP version 4. Now the problem with IP version 4 is it's running out. We have so many devices that it cannot handle. Like it doesn't have any more addresses. Like all the numbers are getting exhausted. So people are like, for a couple of years ago, what they did is actually introduced IP version 6. So IP version 6 is has like, I think 34 billion addresses or something. It's a very, very big number. Let's put it this way. I don't exactly know the number, but it's a very, very big number. So this way, at least we don't run out of addresses anymore. The other thing that I think I didn't talk about is the transmission protocol. So generally, we have two types of transmission protocol. Like in internet, we have a TCP transmission and UDP transmission. Let me see if I can show you an actual difference between those trans TCP, internet. So the way the TCP works is like this. Okay, actually it has both of them. Okay, so the way that TCP works is the client sends a request, the server will receive that request and sends it back, and then the data, like the client will acknowledge, kind of. Okay, the way that the UDP works is like your client sends a request and the sender just responds without any sort of like acknowledgement. So TCP is like more reliable in terms of like a data consistency. Like you make sure that you have your own data, but UDP is much faster because there is no back and forth. You just send the data. Generally speaking, for instance, if you are playing some sort of game, games usually used to use UDP. Although like these days the internet speeds are so fast that like you can use either or and nothing will generally happen unless you are in a very like time sensitive data application. All right, so back to here. So pinging, we talked about pinging. I'm gonna give you guys 2 minutes and I want you to do this ping Twitter. Open your terminal. If you have Windows, I think we talked about like you can do Ubuntu on Windows. That's the easiest way, I think. Do ping Twitter and see the result. Okay, I'll be back in 2 minutes. Okay. So I hope you guys try that, and you will see something like this. These are just like acknowledging that the server is existing. This is one of the things that you can do in order to make sure that your server is kind of like responding. So, and your server is up and running. So this is like one of the days that you can actually try. Pinging again is just like, as we talked in the class, is just for making sure that the server exists and it's responding. Keep in mind, some servers are actually blocking ping. So although the server is existing and it's live, when you ping it, you don't receive anything. So this is pinging. And if you look at here, we see like when you do ping Twitter, it actually converts the twitter.com to the IP address, which is the DNS resolving that we talk about. So we talk about domain name system. We mentioned how domains are getting transferred to the IP addresses. So that's how this like how we actually get things going on. Okay, now let's actually go. We can do subdomains, of course. We can have a I will show you like in the Namecheap that we can have a subdomain and domains. And let's see, another one is traceroute. That's actually a good exercise too. So what traceroute does, this is another command. What traceroute does is like it shows you how your computer starts to going to getting the data, for instance from Google, which servers or which hubs it's hitting. So you go from, for instance, let's say you go from your home to your internet provider to many different hubs before you get actually to your Google. So let's do that one too. So I will give you guys another 2 minutes to go over this traceroute, and let me know if you have any questions. If you have a Git bash, it might not work. Make sure that you have the I would say let it be for now. When you get to set up your server, you can try it from there. So when you do a trace route, you will see something like this. These are the hubs or that your data is going, like your request is going to get to internet. As you see, it's like lots of them, and it's like you see how much time it takes to go through each of them. Okay, so these two are both like internet message protocols that just make sure, like, measure and make sure like your routes are healthy or your servers are healthy. Each like in internet we will use packets of data, like we will have a header, like think about this part as a header and this part as like actual information. So what happens here is like you will have a header. That header contains your like where this package is going, where is it coming from, what time it issued, and stuff like that. And the data is the actual data. Okay. So domain IP, we talked about that. We talked about Vim. Yeah. At this point, at this point, like I'm expecting like most of us should be at least be some level of confidence in Vim, so we can get the things up and running. In terms of Minecraft, like Adam is asking, like I set up a Minecraft server. Yes, you definitely can do it after this workshop. So sure. Anyway, so we know about Vim, we know all these exercises. I'm not going through, like, let you guys do it again, but let's talk about the servers now. So this is the part that things get interesting. So we already buy our domain, if you guys decided. If not, that's fine too. And then now we are going to talk about server. So around 2008, let's put it this way. So since the internet started till around 2002, I believe, if you want to have a server on the internet, or if you wanted to have any source of resources that is only belonging to you, you had to have the whole computer set up for you. So think about like a whole desktop or her server would be belonging to you. The problem with that approach was that it was expensive. Like you would have to pay for many things. You would have to pay for electricity, server maintenance, and everything all together, and it tend to be pretty expensive actually. After like around 2004, a paper came into the academic that would actually show how you can have multiple server or multiple operating systems in one machine. So let me see if I can find a good picture for you. So the way that here. So this is actually, I think it's a good picture. Let's see. Yeah. Okay. I don't have a bigger picture, so I think it's fine. So what the paper suggests is we will share the hardware of the device or the like a computer with different operating systems. So this is how it works. Like, let's say this is the computer that we have, and on top of that we have like different operating systems. A very simple idea about that would be like a virtual box that sometimes, you know, some of you guys might use it, that you can have like different operating system on your machine. So the whole idea about the whole goal or purpose about this approach was resource sharing. As a person, you can have, as a company, you don't need all these resources, all this hardware. So you will just get a chunk of it, and then you will use it. And the good part about it is you can even do something like, let's say, right now this operating system is in idle mode, doesn't use a lot of resources, but this guy is losing a lot of resources. So most of the operating system resources will go to this guy, and then this guy will go to idle, and this guy is using lots of resources, so the resources will go to the other one. This way, like it's a pool of resources that all the virtual operating systems can use it. The virtualization is actually a very interesting topic in computer science, and there are very intuitive ideas about how we can like how they achieve it and how it's going on. Okay, so that's idea of a virtualization. So what does it have to do with this? Like, what does this virtualization have to do with us setting up our server? So the idea about this and our server is that before, if you wanted to set up a server, again, you have to pay like thousands of dollars to have your own server, because you had to buy you have to basically rent the whole hardware to be able to use it. But now, thanks to this virtualization, you don't need to. You can even have like a servers for just paying $2 per month or even less, because of this virtualization. So you just pay the amount of resource, like you pay like $2 or $5 or whatever you think it's good, and they will give you some resources from this shared environment. This way you don't need to pay much, and on the other hand, you will share resources with the other people. The drawback of it is that like sometimes it's not very efficient, like very powerful. But when I'm telling you, sometimes it means like you have a very specific application, or you have a very like large application, like you have Amazon or Facebook. At that point, then it makes sense to have your own servers. You do. I'm hoping that if you get to that point, you will definitely have the money to do that too. So that shouldn't be the problem. So what we do today is we will go and kind of rent one of these spaces. That's the idea about virtualization. When we rent these spaces, you will see like this space in your view is actually the same as your actual full computer or full operating system, because what's happening behind the scenes is like the underlying part is making the illusion for this operating system that this guy is the only operating system that is living in here and has full access to like some resources. So I guess I will not go to more details of that, but keep in mind that like the resources that you will see are shared in a sense, but you will have access to them. Okay. So back to the servers. So we see how the servers work, and we talked about like a node server. I think I even let's look at my GitHub. I even show you a simple node server that we use for GitHub intro that you guys like did a pull request to. So if you look at this, if you look at this guy, this is a very simple server that is written based on like a JavaScript. we actually will use the same code to be able to set up our own server. So the way that this works is I will go a little bit in detail, given that we will work with it, and then I will talk about what happens here. So this is like two packages. Like, think about the packages that we get in order to set up our app. Actually, no, wait, this is only have one package. So we are using a package called Express here. This package will managing your server setup. And what do I mean by server here? It's like your local, like the application, the server application that is running. And here is the console log that we generally use. The next line is just telling you, like, if somebody goes to this server and it was in the like a GET request, then send it back hello world. And the last line is just saying which port this server is listening to. If you have questions about the code, let me know. Like, the code is not the main objective of the course. This isn't like most of like a server side, but given that we want to see how things work, I think it's a good idea that we actually should see how this code integrates with our server. So we will use this code in later topics. Okay. I think, yeah, the simple server, yeah, see, this is almost the same, like the things are the same. I'm not gonna go in details of the difference, but this code is almost the same as the code that we had before. So server, as you see, like lots of racks, lots of computers all together. Data centers have lots of computers connected together, as we talked about, like for instance Google data center, AWS data centers, all of them like have lots of computers that are connected together and act as a single computer. The cloud is just a myth. So when they tell you, like, oh, we store your information in the cloud, as we know, there is no cloud. There is, like, it's not like the other information is actually going to the cloud in the sky. No, the cloud here is like they actually store in their own computers. And in our view, because we don't see the data, we are like, okay, it's in the cloud. We don't see it, so it's gone, something like that. But the cloud is actually the computers for like a big companies, or the information server companies. Okay, we talked about virtual private server. So what is virtual private server? Remember the idea of a virtualization? Now the same idea comes to the servers, and we call it virtual private server. Why is it virtual? Because here, see, it's like this part of like operating system, or this server by itself does not have access to whole operating system, so it's virtual. It's not like, it doesn't have access to the whole OS, and it's private because all your information is in here. All the like resources that are supposed to be for you is for you, so it's private, and it's a server because it's on the internet, right? So that's why they call it virtual private server. We will actually be using this virtual private server for our own setup. So in this exercise, we are going to buy virtual private server. There are different companies that are offering these virtual private servers or services. I will name a couple of them for you. I think One of them is Linux. The other one is AWS. AWS is like the division of Amazon. So we do have Microsoft. I think it's Microsoft. No. Microsoft. I think it's called Azure. So we have Microsoft Azure. We have, I think, Google Cloud Platform. So you see that there are lots of them that offers these services. Today we are going with DigitalOcean for two reasons. The first reason, yes, Azure. Microsoft Azure is offering you the services that you like different services in terms of cloud computing. Let's put it this way. I personally never used it just because I'm using other services, but based on what I heard, they're actually pretty good. So today we are going with the website called DigitalOcean. DigitalOcean is offering us the same idea for the droplets. For the servers. So they give us a virtual private servers, and we can like they offer you different services too. But what we are interested today is like the virtual private server. We will use them. The reason that we are using them is actually a couple of them. First of all, thanks to them, we get a free educational credit for this course. So I would say thank you so much to them. And they like services like AWS or Azure are very actually they require more time to set them up properly. They're like if you go to the AWS console, you will see a lot of options, so it's very easy to get lost. So but on the other hand, like something like DigitalOcean is very easy to set up. All right, so we will go with DigitalOcean. What I want from you guys right now is like all of you guys should get that email to set up your DigitalOcean account. So I will set up the like I said, virtual private server, and then we go through the steps. Okay. Alright. So the way to work with DigitalOcean and setting up a virtual private server is like we go to the console. I already like logged into the console. And then from the left we will select the droplet, and then create droplet. So this screen will open for us. Now these are different different like options that we will have to choose. So from the list of the operating systems, we will choose Ubuntu. Again, like if you are like experienced, you can use any other version in like later, but for now we will just choose Ubuntu, and from the versions we will choose the 18.4.04 LTS. So what is LTS means is like a long-term support. Like as you see, there are newer version of this Ubuntu, but what we want is a long-term support. Long-term support means that long-term support means that it actually like supports for a long, like like a long time. It doesn't go away, kind of. So it actually doesn't cost much. I'll show you why. Just give me a second. Let me get to the costing and I'll show you what's going on here. So what the plan that we want is the standard plan. There are different plans here, like a general purpose or CPU optimized or memory optimized. So CPU optimized or memory optimized are kind of like, think about like, you remember the sharing part, like that in terms of the sharing, like they will give you kind of like a priority in terms of using CPU or using memory. But what we want is a standard plan. Then we'll get to the actual setting it up. So right now it's at 40. We don't want that much. So if you just click on it, you will see smaller plans. What we need is just a $5 per month plan. Okay. Then we want to choose the location of our server. So the location of our server is going to be somewhere near to us. So I would go with San Francisco. Okay, San Francisco second is perfect. We don't need to actually, where is it? Oh no, we didn't get there. We don't need any of this stuff for now. And then it asks for authentication. So authentication is the part that you will basically create an SSH key pair. So this is one of the things that we didn't talk about, but let's actually look it up. So the SSH key pairs, what they do is there's two ways of let me actually, I think there are slides for that. Let me see. So operating system, yeah. So there are two ways of authentication. One is like with SSH key, and the other one is like a username and password. Username and password are okay, but they are not as secure as SSH key pair. So that's why we opt in to use SSH key pair instead of username and password, especially for this like a server support. I do believe if you are using Windows, you need something like a Putigen. Let's actually look at it. Yeah, it seems like you need that one. So yeah, I think Putigen is a very good thing for that. So if you let's go back here. So for instance, right now we'll go ahead and like create a new SSH key and see how things are working. Okay. If you are using Windows, you can do Putigen. I do not have Windows, so I'm not sure how exactly the steps, but you can use Putigen to create it. You have to have a putty. This is putty. Windows. That's usually, generally speaking, the easiest way to do SSH, and then you can do Putigen as I'm mentioning. So have these two installed, and then you kind of can follow me. Okay, so let's head back here. So the way to do SSH is like you can open your terminal. Let me actually even see here. It tells us how to go through it. So we say SSH Gen. And then what is the name of the, well, let's call it DigitalOcean Live. So for now, just don't enter a paraphrase, but if you enter paraphrase, it will be much more secure. And then it will, as you see here, it will create like this graphic based on the SSH. Now, after that, we can do something like this: cat and then SSH, and then I think we call it digi. Yeah, so we call it wait a minute, didn't I not create that? Let's do it again. It seems there's something wrong. Digital. Okay, let's go to, now let's go to that's seems that my SSH is saving, but for some reason it doesn't save it here. That's weird. Let's try. DigitalOcean. Apparently it doesn't create it in here, so again, it's a live stream, so sometimes, as you see, like it will go through issues. Let me see what's going on with my computer, and while you guys are trying to do your SSH, I'll do the same thing, and I'll meet you guys in like 2 minutes. Alright, so not exactly sure what happened, but I did the same exact steps, and the only difference is like I just typed DigitalOcean and apparently it accepted it. So not exactly sure what happened. I can like look it up and let you guys know the issue. So let's now, after you created that SSH, you can do something like DigitalOcean.pub. Make sure that you look at the .pub for public. Okay, so what we want is to look at the public key, and here is our public key, and then we say new SSH key, and let's call it DigitalOcean, and then add SSH key. Then let's rename this to something more meaningful, DigitalOcean Live. You get to the point that like you have so many droplets that you don't know what to name that. Okay, and then you can just create droplet. You don't need backups because this is just a like playing around. So create droplet. Okay, while this droplet is being created, let me talk about SSH key. SSH key, the way that SSH key is working is, let me bring my terminal back. As you see here, I have SSH keys generally have two key pairs. One is just the name of the private, as you see here, it doesn't have anything, and then one which is called public. So we have a public key and private key. The way it works is we will put the public key on the services that we want to use, and then they will encrypt those services will encrypt the data with this public key, and then they send it to us, and they know that only us can decrypt it because we have the key to this public key. So the way it works, think about like they have the public key, they can encrypt it, but after the encryption, like nobody else can understand what's going on because they don't have the key to actually open it. Okay, so that's how SSH keys work, and as you see, they are pretty long in both like private and public. That's how we will make sure that we are secure. Okay, so far let's it's a good idea to name it something else. Like I named it DigitalOcean Live, but it's a good idea to name it something else so it doesn't get confusing. It will be up to you. Like you can name, like you can say I'm actually gonna do it for myself. I will, let me see if I can change the name. I'm pretty sure I can. Let's see if I can change the name so to something more volume. The one volume metrics agent. Oh, I don't think. Let's see, both of them are in me. Let's see if I can add them. At least it's add tag here. Not sure which one is mine now. Okay, I'll get the first one. Whoever did the second one, add a tag so we know. Okay, like I don't know. Actually, I think yeah, this is alright. That one was mine. Let me remove the tag. Let me see if I can edit tags. Let's just remove it. Okay, let's go here. I'm going to create a tag to here, name myself. Okay, so it's a good idea that you guys add tags to the DigitalOcean. Yes, you can use Putty. What I would suggest you guys to do, like after you do this, make sure to add tags to that. So like we don't use our own, like we don't use the servers interchangeably. I will give you guys 15 minutes to set this up, and then we will continue after. Any questions so far before we drop for 15 minutes? All right then. So let's break for 15 minutes. I want you to guys to all set up your DigitalOcean. Make sure you set it up like on a right config that we talked about, and then we will continue. That's very important that you guys actually set it up, because if you don't do it, the rest of the stuff will be kind of complicated. Okay, so see you guys in 15 minutes. Okay, so I'm hoping that you guys were able to add SSH keys to your droplets. And now let's actually see how we can log in. So the way that we can log in is we type it right now. Like if you have PuTTY, you can just do I do believe that you can do root at the IP address. But if you're on the Linux, you can do something like this. You can go to the droplet and get this IP. You can copy it and then go here and type SSH root at that IP and hit enter. If you are doing it at the first time, it might ask you for the information, like if you want to add this to the permanently known host, and you would say yes, and then after that, as you see, you can just log in. The next step is the first, like usually that's the steps that you will have to take. So after you logged in, see, like right now you have the whole computer for yourself. Like you see, you have an IP address, everything, and it's an Ubuntu. So like for instance, if you have a Windows and some of the commands didn't work, definitely work here. For instance, I can just type cal, and as you see, like it shows here because it's an Ubuntu. Okay, so let's clear this. Right now, like this thing, like right now I logged in as a root, which is not a very good idea. It's better to change it to something else that we will go over. Okay, so the first thing that we will do is typing apt update. So apt update will basically updates our own repository and addresses to the latest version, and then you can do apt upgrade to upgrade those lists. The difference between the update and upgrade is like update gets the latest versions and stuff, and upgrades is like actually upgrading the packages. Before I move forward, I'm gonna ask all of you guys online that your permission was denied, Kurtik. Which operating system are you using? Is it Windows or is it Windows or like a Mac? I mean Linux. The username is root, generally speaking. The username is root, like you would say root at that IP address, and then there is no password needed because you have SSH keys. Did you use a PuTTY, Kurtik? Did you use PuTTY and PuTTY-Gen, as Adam was mentioning? Nice, Micah. The password should be empty. There is no need to do password because you're using SSH. Yeah, you don't need password. Okay, everyone, I want to make sure that you guys are clear and you are at the same place as I am right now, because otherwise it's going to be kind of complicated to follow. So everyone is in? Everyone are in? You're not in, or you are using SSH? Okay, so you have to have a putty gen as, let's look. The public key should be in the droplet, not their private. Yeah, exactly. Make sure it's a public key, not private key. Private key is just for you. So, you want to use this. Of course, you have to use SSH, but well, the private key is working, but generally speaking, you should not share that one. You should do the public. The private key is just for you. Private key is like the key that opens everything, so you don't want to share it. So make sure that if you do that, like, don't share it with anyone like else. But the idea is like you have to do the public key. There is a long delay. That's what it says. Stream. I think that's just the way that the streams work, because in terms of the long delay in the stream, it's like I don't have a lot of issues in my streaming. It's just, I think it's just the way that it takes, so I cannot do it better. I don't even have a delay in my stream, so whatever you see is correct. Like, I don't have any sort of like delay between the streams. So we cannot use Google Meet because then like everyone will share their screen and there will be issues. Okay, let's get back to the domain. So if you have a domain, you can go to the Namecheap's domain part, and then in here in the domain list you will see like the domain that you got. My best domain, best, for instance, here. Then what we want to do is go to advanced DNS. So in the advanced DNS, what we want to do is we want to actually add some records here. So this record is, why is it near record, I think. This record will be a record. I believe the host is @ and we will get our own IP. Where is that? Here. Okay. So now what happens is, so we did that the A record, and that's @ so this is the part that we were talking about, like the resolving the name servers to the actual like a IP. This happens here. Kurtik, if it doesn't still work, we can look at it for you on the class, because right now I don't have, I'm not exactly sure what's what can be wrong with your computer. So the way that it can work with the A record is this. So you will have an A record, you will have a host like of @ and then the value. So this value is like, right now we are telling if the person just hits our domain, like mybestdomain.best, where should it go? It will go to this address. Okay, so that's the whole idea behind the whole idea that we say, okay, the domain resolvers, this is how it works. Right now we are just doing it for like A record. We can do for other stuff like emails too, and it's the same idea. All right, so now that we logged in, so this is if you have the domain. If you don't need to be worried about this part. And again, like, we do it right now because it takes like 30 minutes to completely like work, so that's why. All right, so we have SSH, we have public key, we have private key. Again, like Adam, see, your private key is the secret and it's for you, but like it works. Like you shouldn't share it. If you did it, that's fine. Just make sure you don't use it for any other like important server. Okay. We went through SSH keygen, and here's how we log in with our IP. We didn't need to do that. Like, it depends. Like, especially if you use inputted, you don't need this step. Okay, and this is what you see. So you all should see something like this. Now we went through this. We went through buying a domain. I talked about A record, and that basically maps name to IP address and then maps name to the name. So for instance, we just set up the A record, and let's go to the part that I want to talk about. See, these are the parts that we went already through, but let's go through the setting up our server. So for the server setup, we will have to do a couple of things. We already did apt update and apt upgrade. The next part is to not use the root user, because root user has so many privileges, which makes things dangerous. Like, anybody with a root can do many things, and we kind of don't want that. So let's actually add another user instead of your root user to be able to get it to work. Okay. So we are on the server. This is my server screen, and I can do add user, and let's just name it Ham. So now it asks me for the password. I actually have a password from before that I will use for this guy, and given that, so I'm just gonna paste it here. Okay, I will let the rest to be empty, and then that's it. So now I created my user. So the next step would be, let's actually do something like this. Let me see if I can make this like be smaller. Yes, make this is better. Okay. So the next step would be to add our user to the supergroup, or like make our user a pseudo user. So pseudo user is the type of user that by default doesn't have the privilege of like changing things, but by the sudo command he will be able to. Okay, so let's do user mod -ag commit. Usage. Did I enter it correctly? User mod -ag. Tried it correctly. It already exists. Then user -ag. Oh yes, sudo. Okay. So I converted it to sudo user. Now I can actually go and change to my regular user. Okay. So now do you see the difference? As soon as I went from the sudo or root user to regular user, do you see the difference in the command line? Before everything was Y, I have this sharp symbol that was like telling me, you know, you are in a root status, and now after that everything is root, and this is actually like showing me like I'm Hamid and I'm not root anymore. So to check this out, we can do something like that: cat var log of that log. See, if I just do cat var log auth.log, it's telling me, oh, you know what, this is not right, like you don't have permission. So but if I do sudo, now it's telling me, oh, enter your password, and here you go. These are like the authentication logs for the server. Generally speaking, even if you just set up your server, this auth log shows you a very interesting information in terms of like people trying to log into your server, or computers or programs trying to break into your server. This is a fact that you guys have to accept it. So we will have to make sure that our server is secure, and after we are making sure that the server is secure, then that's all we can do, and then monitor here to make sure that nothing, like if something suspicious happening, take action to alleviate it. Okay. The next step would be to create a SSH key for the user that we are in, to be able to log in with that user without any like we can log in to the server with that user instead of actual root user. Okay, so this is the next step that we will take: cd and then mkdir hp ssh, and then let's do vim and then authorized keys. Okay, so from here what I can do is I'm gonna use the same key that I have for this guy here, and I'm just gonna copy this and here, and we'll paste it here and save it. Okay, so now we can actually exit. See, the first time that we exit, we will go back to the root, and then we can do another exit, and then I am on my desktop. So now I can do Hamid at, what was the IP address for my command, and as you see here, I was able to now log in as like a regular user instead of the sudo user. This is the safer way, because we in order for us to make like a important changes, we have to use sudo, so it's much safer. Okay, the next thing is to change this file permissions and disable the root login. So the file permissions are good to make sure, like chmod 644, like we don't give especially like for SSH key, we don't want to give like lots of access, and even if you have a lot of access, if the permissions are too open for SSH keys, what happens is like it will tell you, like, you know, this permissions are too open and we cannot accept it. Okay, so SSH and authorized key. Okay, now the next thing that we want to do after we fix our permissions for the SSH keys is actually to disable our root login. So we don't want to people to be logging in, so we are root username. So this is how we do it. So sudo vim etcsh sshd config, asks for my password. Oh, I think no, let me get my password again for this guy. Alright, and then here you see it says permit root login. We will change this from yes to no, and then we have to actually restart our sshd restart our service restart. Okay, so let's actually try that. So I can come here and I will say, I think that's, yeah, I'm pretty sure that's 167, right? 167, no, that's not the one. So let's try it. SSH root at this address, and yeah, as you see, we cannot access it anymore. So how are you guys doing? Are you guys are you guys with me, or you fall behind? Okay, so hopefully I can we can fix it for you, Kurtik, and then you can like rewatch it again and see how things work. Let's actually continue. Like, remember like to come to me like after class or before class, and we will go over what's wrong with your system, or what's the problem, what's the issue. Adam probably will be able to help you too in that matter. Okay. So after we did this part, after we set up our SSH and we secured our root login, what we want is hold on a second. Yeah. Okay. What we want is to install the web server, or like a kind of web server. Yeah. So this web server is the server that actually installed, that sits on your computer, and what it does is listens to the incoming request from outside world and then connects it to the applications that are running locally on this server and make them like respond kind of in a very, I would say, easy, a very simple manner answer, I would say. So let's actually go over it and see what I mean by that. So the first thing that we want to do is like we will use a web server called Nginx. Nginx does many stuff like reverse proxy, web server, and even proxy server. Remember at the beginning of the course I talked about like we have different servers like Apache, Lightspeed, Nginx. We will use Nginx in this scenario. I personally use like both Nginx and Apache, and I also use Lightspeed. So one of my servers have Lightspeed, the other one has Apache. If I want to do like a JavaScript project, I would generally use Nginx because it's easier to set up and configure it with Nginx, and it's much faster. And that's why we are using Nginx in here too. So, how to get the Nginx to, yeah, this is like, these are the things that we talked about. Request comes in, and then the web server like direct the request to the app. Okay, what I want from you guys now is we want to install Nginx, right? So the way to install Nginx is sudo apt install Nginx, and we want to install it. And now let me show you something before I continue. So I'm gonna go here, and right now, oh, it's already started. I wanted to show you like what happens. Now, as you see here, as soon as you install Nginx, this is what you get. Is this my correct droplet? I'm pretty sure it is. Yep. Okay, so as soon as you install Nginx, you would see a screen like this. Okay. Now, let's actually go ahead and change it. Change the default view. And then I will actually give you guys, actually, you know what? Let's have like another 15 minutes break. What I want you guys to do is to go over the material that we talked so far, make sure that you catch up, install Nginx, and then we will go through the customization of it. Any questions before we go to the break? All right then, let's go to the break. I want you guys to simply go through Nginx and go to the installation process and make sure that we are at the same place. After that, I will go through like how we can have a simple page instead of like the welcome page, and we go from there. All right, so I hope that you guys was able to catch up. Let me know if you guys have any questions. Otherwise, I'm gonna start continuing. For actually, let me see. For the next time, I will make sure to put the stream in the low latency, so we don't have like a latency issue anymore. Right now, I cannot do it because we are on a live stream. I will make sure that to fix it for the next week. Okay, so we saw like a default page for the Nginx. Now let's actually go ahead and play with it a little bit. So what we can do is we can come here. Let's bring this guy here. Do I think it's var www HTML. Yeah, so this is the default one. Let's see if it has a default values. Let's go to www. HTML. So this is the default page that is showing. See, if you go to index, you see this is the default page. Page that is running. So let's do something. I do believe I don't need to run it, but let's just make sure that I am on the service. And then password is wrong. Okay, I'm pretty sure that yeah. So let's do something very so here's what we will do. Let's create an index.html page. This is my first web server. So apparently you can do a sudo here. Sudo win. This is my first server. Oh no, it's not a very nice HTML, but we want to make sure that it replaces the actual HTML that we had before. So as you see here, we were able to change the HTML. Now guess what? I can also do something. Where is my domain? Yeah, my best domain. I'm hoping that right now it's working. And again, it doesn't. Alright, let's look at see what's going on here. I think it's because the domain is parked. Let's see. Go to domain. Yeah, it was parked. Direct domain. Yeah. So we will change this guy to this guy. So this is what's happening. Please enter for the qualified domain name. Oh, I don't want this saying record at all, actually. Yes. So let's add another A record. We call this guy. Add another record. We call this. Oh, there's something. www, and we give it this IP address. So the reason that was happening before is because this www, like basically the main domain was redirecting to www, and the www was redirecting to the Namecheap parking domain. So let's try that again. It might work, it might not work. Okay, so we will give it some time, and we will see that it solves the issue. But for now, let's actually go back to our own server. Okay. So we have this part set up and ready. The next thing that I like to show you is configuration. So let's go and look at the configuration of the Nginx. So you can look at the Nginx configuration by like doing cat or less. Actually, let's do less because it's too much. And then etc Nginx, so it's available, and then default. So these are the whole server configuration for like a default site. It's a lot of things, okay? Generally speaking, Nginx documentation is not very well written. So if you want to do something, just look it up. You might find the answer faster and easier. So the way that these web servers work is you can have like the same way that you can have multiple VPSs on one physical hardware. Now you can have multiple websites on one web server, which is usually the case. So what I mean by that is like you can have like 20, 30, 40 websites on a single web server that we are setting up right now. And in that case, you wanna have a way to like distinguish between them. You wanna have a way to say, okay, this if the traffic comes for this specific website, go to this location. If it goes to that website, go to that location, so far and so forth. But for the purpose of this course, we will just use it for hosting a single resource or single website. Okay, and that's how we continue to do it. So in order for us to do that, we will have to learn about a couple of things. First of all is like base directory for the request, like when the request comes, where do they go? Okay, if you look at here, like you see the base directory for request. Let me see if I can show it to you here. Like see like base directory, then the server name. Okay, see this is like this. These are the virtual host configuration that we were talking in here, and then the redirect stuff. So the redirect is like what happened like when they type like the main slash or the home URL, where do they suppose to go? Okay, so all these things are configurable in this file or this configuration file. We did set up a default page. What I want you guys to do the same way too, like the same way that as I did too. I will give you guys 10 minutes, and I want you guys to set up the same way that I set up the. Actually, let's try it. Let's hope that it's working. Let's see if I do. And sometimes in incognito works because it doesn't cache the data. Okay. it's still propagating, so let it be. For now, what I want you guys to do is go ahead and create a custom HTML page on your default location. After let's say another 15 minutes, we come back and we'll talk about how we can use Node.js to have as a server. Before we stop, do you guys have any questions or any clarifications? All right then, so let's meet in 11:30 and we will go over how to install Node.js and have an actual Node application. All right. I know a couple of you guys have some issues with the Nginx and setup. That's the whole idea that we wanted to do the live stream. So some of the issues we can solve, some of them we don't, like we cannot solve during the live stream. Like what we can do is like after live stream, you guys can come and ask questions to be able to solve the issue. The last topic that I have for today is for setting up GitHub and Nginx. I'm not sure if I get to the GitHub part, but I'm pretty sure we can get to the like a sorry, not GitHub, like a node, node in our system. So let's do that. So the reason that we want to install Node, as we mentioned before, Node is think about like a JavaScript engine on the Chrome. Now Node is like a standalone version of that. So everything that we get with the JavaScript version, now we get with like Node, but it is much more I would say like just a standalone kind of thing, which is a good thing. So we will go over how to use Node and what Node has to offer us. Let's go over it. The first thing that we have to do is like install Node. So sudo apt install node.js npm. So there is one of the things that we are installing is Node.js, and the other one is npm. Npm is Node Package Manager, although apparently it doesn't stand for that, so nobody knows what npm stands for, but it's a Node Package Manager. So however you want to call it, it's a Node Package Manager. So we are installing Node. Alright, please guys let me know if I know Micah, you do have an issue with the problem with your Nginx. That we will go over it, but let me know if you have any issues as well. Okay, so the next part will be installing Git. So Git, we install it on our local. We already have Git in here. So Git is the version control that we talked about. It's a good idea that we have like a Git on our own system, like in our server too. So this is we will see the workflow. In terms of working on it on the class, we can work on it if you have questions, or we can go over the parts that you have issues with. But definitely yes, like I'm not going to like go over every material again, but you are welcome to ask me questions, or we will go over the parts that you have issues to be able to solve it. I hope that answers you. So let's so we install Git and we install Node. So far we were able to, we saw how we can host a static website. Actually, before we continue, I'm pretty sure this domain should be good to go now. Now let's try this guy too. Let's hope it's working. If it's not, yeah. As you see here, now my best domain, or this guy, is actually showing my server content. Let me see if I can do it in here too. Yeah. So as you see, like let's what was my server IP address again? Yeah, that was mine. So see, with the just IP, and this is with the domain. So we can actually set we can have now this is exactly how websites and domain work. Like we are pointing the domain to the server and the server is working. Okay, so that's the whole idea of domains. Again, if you do not have a domain, that's fine, but if you have a domain, you should be able to see that actually like pulls out the actual information from us. After we install Node and npm, now we can actually host dynamic websites. So what do I mean by that? Like right now we can just host a very simple HTML. Like, so if you have a very simple, like if you have a just HTML website, you can simply go there and upload your HTML files in like the HTML folder, and everything will work as you expect. Now let's say you have some sort of like some Node.js website. We will look to see how we can host that one as well. That's the whole idea here. So we did install Git and we did install the Node. Now these are the things that we have to do in order for us to be able to actually get the website up and running. So what do I mean by that? In order for us to be able to host especially like a dynamic website, it's a good idea to change the ownership of the folder. I did talk about permissions, and this is the permissions and user ownership, and this is exactly what we are doing in here. So let me just do it here. Actually, so sudo chown -r, we want to make sure that it is made and honey, and then I'll just name it up, that's fine. Okay, and then here's what I like to do actually. Instead of like making an app, I will do something like that. And let me delete the app, and I will do git clone, and then remember we have a git intro, GitHub. Let's go to git intro. I will just clone this guy. Git clone. Alright, so if we look at here, we have a git intro. Let's change the name of this git intro to simple server. How about that? To simple app. And now we have a simple app. Now everything should be fine. Let's go to actual simple app of ours. You see that it has the thing, so we can do npm install to install all the dependencies. that this package manager needs, and then I think it's npm run. I'm pretty sure it's that. Is it? Oh, I can just do actually server.js. Yeah, and here we are. So the server is running in port 3000. So far we were able to run actually our server. We have all this code already, and like we did exactly the same thing. It's just app.js. We have a node.js. Now what we have to do is we have to connect our Nginx to our Express application. So the way that we do it is with the location URL. I will actually I will let you guys handle this part. I want you to guys think about it. It's basically based on the location you think that we went over in the Nginx config. So I want you guys to go and figure out if you can do it. If you cannot do it, that's fine too, because we will go over it in next week. Again, there was a lot of material. I tried to go very slowly. If you caught up in any of these places, it's okay. Go watch the video again and you should be fine. Otherwise, please ask me questions and I will make sure to answer you as fast as I can. In the meantime, do you guys have any questions before we finish for today? Alright then, thank you everyone for joining. We will continue in this topic next week. We will talk about SSL, how to do the location proxies, some security stuff, and yeah, I think that would be it. Again, if you guys can send me your questions during the week, your droplets in DigitalOcean will be available by till end of December. So I would definitely suggest you guys to feel free to go and play with it. Don't worry, you don't, as long as you are in the specific droplet that is belonging to you, you should not be able to break anything. Don't change any plan or anything, but you should be fine in terms of like going around and playing. Make sure that like you do purposefully go and set up things, okay? And yeah, that's it for this week. In terms of the latency issue, I will make sure that the next week latency will be much better and faster. Again, thank you so much, and see you some of you guys in the class later today, and the rest in next